Okay, the floor is you guys.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about the right to be forgotten, which is like a human right that's granted by the European Union, like in 2014. They granted this to all the European Union like residents. So at that time, it's also the start of where those people start like request delisting those past information from the research engine like Google's. And right to be forgotten is the right of individual data subject to remove personal private information from internet search engine or other directories under some circumstances. It's not like you can request to delisting everything from the internet, but it's like you have some special condition and you think those information is unrelated and is not gonna make a, like even those information doesn't exist will make a big influence to the whole society, then you can ask request to delist those informations. And we have the statistics like from one article shows that for the 2014 to no 2016 to 2019, like you can say from the table, there's like total 100,500,000 like request URL from the private individual. That means like most of the request is not coming from some famous celebrity or government official guy. Like they do have some, but it's not like the main factor of those requests. But it's most come from the small individuals, and that will make the whole case more complicated, since like for small individuals it takes more time to relate to those links because you are just like a private individual. Your story probably not be well known for the whole world, but that does mean like the thing you did is not going to make a big effect on the whole world. So this is kind of the part make the whole thing a little bit convoluted. And from another table, it shows like from those like request URLs, it's not like each individual requests one, but it's like each in average, like every requester maybe wants to delete 6 URLs. So which also means like the individuals have a lot of things they want to delete from the internet. And in that sense, each individual may have a lot of concern of those information shows online, and they will make a huge amount of requests for maybe same reason, but just trying to do this 10 URL or 20 URLs, just like for the same reason, but it takes a lot of time to review those URLs like manually one by one. So our decision is trying to make an autonomous system to try to like classify those obvious cases into a like to do a more efficient and more fair way. And that'll be next to Louis to introduce the problems we introduced now.
Louis, you mute yourself.
Oh, hi. Sorry, I was muted. So as Chung Han said, yeah, there are so many requests. So there are two major problems with it. The two factors are inefficiency and unfairness. So currently, it's a very controversial topic that, like, how do we draw a boundary between personal privacy and public interest? So a lot of cases, like for example, as shown on the slide, like Google refused some request, and then it goes on to the court, and then yeah, defender saying that like they want to delist some of the their names like long time ago, but Google refused because Google said there are still good amount of public interest there. So so like that's the problem. So like Also, there are too many requests being processed, so the inefficiency of human labor, like, is the first problem needs to be solved. Secondly, because it's like human handling too much request, like they include some human errors, like during the process. So there's no like a clear standard for them to process everything. Sometimes they may just like get away the request easily because they just don't want to accept further appeal from the denial. And secondly, there's no clear boundary. There's no fair standard to draw a boundary between right to be forgotten and other rights, like right to be, right to remember, or censorship. Thus, there needs to be a like transparent and fair algorithm that's to handle this the tension between these two.
Yeah, so based on the issue and problem we went over, we're thinking to use our technology to develop an autonomous system to make the right to be forgotten decisions. So we believe one benefit of current machine or internet is it can read and capture the information way faster than human beings by using our technology like natural language processing. So we want to like fully utilize the traits of like current technology to build up the comprehensive profile about the requesters and have a deep and detailed understanding about the content of the URL that people want to delist. So here's our plan. For each petition, requester will submit the keyword that's related to the URL. So we're gonna use this chance to understand more about this keyword online. So we want to see if big data can actually find more information about this keyword, about this person, and they want to know more about this person and build up the profile, like as we mentioned, the jobs, social status, and crime history. So, and we will trying to encode those data. In addition, we'll look at URL. So we want to analyze the topic, the seriousness also, as I think as the search engine companies, they also have the way to know like when this URL is posted online and like probably know a little bit more about the viewers, like how many people view the or clicks the URL in recent times, and probably can know their IP and know where they come from. So we want to use those information, encode them and embed it into our model. Also, we want to include a site ID because as we mentioned, we think different community probably will have different public interests. So we want to our model can find a way to differentiate those different public interests. So that's why we want to include that site ID. So right now, I think for this site ID, it probably can be just unique ID that the communities that requested are currently located in. So for example, we can have different site ID for Yolo County or like with different like Los Angeles, or we can probably have a little bit more general, so like North California, South California, and with different states in the United States and also in the Europe. So we want to use all those information embedded into our model. And at the end, we hope our output of the model is the probability, which using the softmax. So with softmax layer, it will give the probability between 0 to 1. So we hope to have a threshold. So if the threshold is 0.5, and the model actually gives the probability based on the information that's which like the value is 0.6 or 0.7. So we're gonna like approve this right to be forgotten petition to delete that certain URL. So so with this model, we definitely need a way to examine, to evaluate, analysis, and explain how the model makes a decision and make sure it's doing the correct thing. So that's how we can use there's new algorithm called like explainable AI. So XAI. So we want to use such method to try to understand how the model makes the decision to actually discover this black box of our system. So for example, we can use this library called SHARP. So as a graph here, so it can actually list the feature importance, and it will tell you like whether this feature will affect more about like making negative cases or positive cases. And it will actually give the value to tell you how big the effect or impact it is about this feature. And more detailed, I think we can do the case analysis for each person. So for example, in the graph here, we have the base value, and this value will be we can assume it's the probability that the model gives. So here, multiple features. The XAI can actually tell you how each feature impacts this result. So like, for example, with this feature, with this specific value, actually the model will increase the probability to approve the request. And for example, with those three values, with such a specific feature, those actually will decrease the probability that model gives. So we hope we can use the case analysis and explainable AI to understand how model makes the decisions, and we're gonna compare those with the annotation that Google previously makes. So we can also check if the feature importance is actually matching like Google or human reviewing processes. Like probably they also have kind of standard to see like what kind of feature or information is most important in the decision making. And we want to see if this logic is actually matching the like human decisions. And yeah, that's how we're gonna design such a system and how we gonna evaluate and understand it. Then we're gonna talk about the ethical analysis.
Yeah, so for our ethical analysis, our system will be based on the utilitarianism and deontology theory. So for deontology view, our system will strictly follows the universal moral standards, and by delisting any URL that by like accepting the request of delisting any URL containing false information and also abusive content. And for utilitarianism, and our system will like try to ensure the like good for the majority by refusing to delist any link or information with high public interest. So for ethical analysis, we also like go over some of the controversial cases, ethical problems in our paper, and I'll sum it up over here. So we believe that for most automated system, there are potential risks that the system will be used in the wrong way. So for our system could go wrong because we evaluate public interest based on the number of clicks for the URL. So imagine a scenario when an individual, say, requests to delist a link from the search engine that has like a high public interest. So in this case, what he can do is to use algorithms or some programs to repeatedly like access a couple of other links to fake up the public interest, so that the link that he wants to delist it from the internet will be comparatively low in public interest. And so by doing this, this individual can achieve the purpose of delisting information that he wants from the internet, despite of the fact that it contains high public interest. So in this scenario, our system will be morally incorrect because it runs the risk of being used to delist any information from the internet and violates the freedom of information for the public. And this is just one example of how our system will be used in the wrong way. And we also went over one of the controversial case that Google had. So Google once received a request from a company. This request is kind of special. It has it contains both inaccurate information and criminal conviction. So this is controversial for our system to approach, because in our system, we tend to reject any requests that are related to criminal convictions. But we also want to delist any information with inaccurate information and content. So the way how our system is going to approach this is, we believe that rejecting to delist any criminal conviction related links has a higher priority. So we decide not to delist such link, which contains both an inaccurate information and criminal conviction information. So we believe that by doing this, we can ensure the public safety by leaving the criminal records as a information for the public. And also, since criminal conviction cases tend to have high public interest, by doing this, we can also ensure the right for freedom of information. And our approach can also be controversial when people believe that we did not possess the right to be forgiven, which is a concept that a professor discussed with us in last week's lecture discussion. So some people may think that we are not giving a chance for someone who made a mistake by refusing to delist the criminal information from the internet. And what we believe is to forgive someone just by deleting the information, hiding the truth from the internet using technology, is not a appropriate approach. So to forgive someone should be an effort that the community should put on. We should not accuse someone who made a mistake. So this is one reason why we believe that criminal records should not be delisted. And this is all the cases we have went over for ethical analysis.
Okay, who's going to be next one, or you're done?
Yihong, do you want to go over the summary?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so since right to be forgotten is controversial, even if we have manual checking system, there are thousands of controversial topics and controversial requests that is being processed by Google, and it's still causing most controversy. So our system will aim to reduce the workload, even though our system can aim to reduce the workload of the manual check. In the current world, we already can observe a tendency that AI and machines gradually able to replace traditional labor force to be the first productive force. And this is how our innovation comes from, and we are trying to utilize such a system into the RTBF case decisions. The final goal of our system is to perform near human decisions in a fast, fair, and transparent way.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, just we will also want to talk a little bit about our future work. So in terms of the future work, I think the first thing is a controversial cases for the autonomous system. So like I mentioned, we want the model will give the probability that whether a case should be approved or disapproved. So think of this the threshold is 0.5, and what if the model actually gave a a number which downgrade between this threshold. So it's sometimes it would be hard to see like 0.49 is like we definitely should reject this petition, or like with value of 0.51 we should approve this petition. So that's why we think there will be some controversial cases for our system, and we actually thinking if it would be possible that we can let human intervention into this decision making, but this will also cause another like ethical concern or issue, because we're actually trying to create the autonomous system, but is that ethical to have the human intervention into our system? I think this could be the topic we're gonna think of in the future. And also about the public interest, we're actually thinking if there's better way to incorporate the public interest into the decision making. So as I mentioned previously about our innovation, we're thinking to just include a side ID, but we actually also think if there's a way to incorporate more detailed information about the community, for example, like how many people live there and the crime history in this community, and some information like this, we would like to see if this can be like more useful in the decision making, because we deeply understand public interest is probably one of the like the thing we like most important thing we need to address to handle those like right to be forgotten requests, to like balance the privacy and with the public interest. So yeah, that's all about our future work. So we do also have some question about our system, and we would like to hear your opinion. So like what do you think about our like pros and cons of our autonomous system? And also I think it's possible, like especially for some like just normal people, sometimes it could be hard to find like or to build up the profile of this person. So we are thinking we also have question to like about like how can we address those missing value if we cannot find them online. And also about just the third question is about having like human intervention into the controversial cases for the autonomous system. And yeah, and that's all about our project.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. This is a very good piece of work, and I like your paper. It's a topic which is controversial. I actually didn't realize that your work, the direction you have been taking, it actually triggers some very important principle about right to be forgotten. So let me actually start it with the first one. I have a sequence of comments or questions. Some of this address some of your questions here, actually. The first question I want to say is that it's not really a question, it's just a comment about your work. What's the main difference between doing RTBF manually and autonomously? One of the very important reasons to do autonomously, which I didn't realize even when we discussed last week, this was, if I can do it autonomously, I can do it again and again for the same link. So if it's a manually, I decide I want to forget or I don't want to forget, it's one time, it's off the Google engine forever. But if I actually do it autonomously, I can actually decide, evaluate to say, hey, I want to forget this one. Because I think, for example, there's no public interest. But next week, I actually see some new information. I said, well, this become a public interest. I can actually bring it back if I do it autonomously. So if you can do things autonomously, there is a lot of interesting option we can do, which is impossible if we rely on manual approach. So this actually took care of a lot of problem, because if I said right to be forgotten is not really right to be forgotten permanently. I'm talking about right to be forgotten maybe only for next few days. But autonomously, I can actually reevaluate because public interest is actually going up and down. I never realized the public interest for this particular data is actually valuable at all until something happened next week. Then I can actually bring it back to that. So that is one thing which is I see a very important value. So let me actually talk about the public interest a little bit about your work, which you can actually challenge if you feel that this approach might not work well. So right now you're looking at like a click-through rate, for example. You see that how many clicks that a particular link is receiving, and you talk about the attack that people can actually click on other thing, which you kind of lower the value about that particular link. Okay, number one, I feel that the public interest of the link in principle should be independent of the public interest on other link. So essentially, if you can click everything else, but as long as I got 5 clicks on this link, I mean, others links got 2 million, 5 million, 5 billion link, 5 billion click, but this link got 5 clicks for the past 1 year, that might be enough for me to keep it there. So that's one way to use click as the public interest. But the other thing which I'm actually interested is even assuming a document got 0 click, a document got 0 click, but they are related document to this. So we're talking about content. Say this document is about a particular incident happened in a particular location. But there is other document which is happening in a similar location in UK and in the similar context, but it's a different document. But that document got a lot of interest. So I'm actually looking at the relationship about the content like a graph, like a network. And from the graph perspective, then I look at to determine the public interest. If a document has a lot of link to other document because the content similarity, then even if this single document has not been looked at all, but there is a high probability that this document will be looked at because people are interested in the document that's not too far away in the graph. So that is a graph-oriented determination about whether this document has some public value. So if you have a document which is totally isolated, there's nothing connect to that, then I will say, okay, I will temporarily delist this particular document as to be forgotten. But in the future, say next week, suddenly the graph show up to show the relationship. And then this document will be searchable again because I see the interest. So my view about public interest is actually a dynamic figure. It's not a static 1 and 0. And therefore, to be able to do autonomous is so important because I can actually bring back anything that's actually being delisted. You can actually make a request, but we will defend that based on the dynamics of the interest. So I feel that is really interesting when I look at the things. It's not only fast, but also we can actually handle things with such. Okay, I will pause for a moment. Any question or any concern about what I just said?
Just one problem is like, if you constantly bring back those cases, that's like you said, it maybe it's not public interest before and now it's public interest, then what's the meaning to hide it? Like eventually maybe you're gonna be bringing back to the internet, right?
Yeah, eventually, yes, that's true. That is a concern. So which means that we're using the same program to decide whether we want to delist it, we will use the same program to decide whether we want to relist it, right? I mean,
Yes.
I'm not bringing back anything which is just because for no reason. I will bring back a delisted content just because there's a new situation, there's a new document that's actually related to this list. Okay, we have to think about the delist for different reason. If it's delist for factual error, like some of the case. In fact, it's interesting, one of the case even contain factual error. I think your case is that you mentioned is that Google want to refuse to delist it, but then the EU actually sue them, right, for penalization. So there is that case is interesting. If it's a factual error, how do we actually take care of that? Well, this is actually interesting, is that if there's a document has some factual error, if that's the reason we decide to delist it, but then there's some good information that's actually highly interest to the public, and that need to be balanced out. And that information, at some point, we actually decide that now there is a significant public interest based on the graph that I was talking. I was talking about the graph model, not just the click. And we can actually bring it back to be searchable because now it became public interest. So in other words, what I'm saying is that if this is not criminal, if the criminal is always, we say, if it's a criminal, is always, you cannot delist it, like what you suggest, I agree. But for other reason, when we delist it, and because we actually justify that the public interest is almost zero or doesn't exist, that could change as well. That could be a legitimate reason to relist something which has been delisted some time ago. I mean, if you think about that, let's actually talk about this. How do you feel there is a document that you request to delete, to be delisted, and Google say yes. And after a few months, that's actually Google want to bring it back, and you receive an email or you receive a request saying that, hey, we're going to relist this document in 2 weeks. I mean, you're not immediately put it back. You give people some time, 2 weeks time for them to actually fight for against the decision by the autonomous. And if you do that, do you think that the system will work okay, or is actually going to create another type of disaster? Assuming we actually be able to do autonomously.
There's just one question just coming across my head. It's like, it seems like if such like related public interest, which means like those like past experience, maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago, like those will have a very flexible restriction on them because it's like so long ago, and that seems like to have some kind of public interest in current trend. So will that cause like people don't know about the past when they're trying to search for stuff? And you know, like it's just like the public interest is not like become a trend because like you need some group to start those research. And if those group cannot even start research like those, because those things are being delisted in the past, I was just thinking whether there could be another interest to bring those back. Like,
right. Well, the example I'm actually thinking is the following. Assuming I request to delist certain thing about myself, but after a few years, I decide to run for a political position. I decide to compete for some election or whatever. And now suddenly everybody's digging information about me. At that time, the the link I request to delist, to be delisted, should that be bring back in life? Because it used to be, I'm not a politician and nobody's interested in this, but now suddenly I became the spotlight. And do you think that that information should come back to be searchable? I mean, obviously, it's probably okay, because if there is information still exists somewhere, not search engine, somebody can actually share it still and be able to do something about it. But the thing is that we can see that the situation might change depending on the change, the dynamics of public interest. That's actually some thought I have. It's still controversial, I think.
Yeah, because that's like our first potential is like we don't want to remove any factual description.
Right.
It's just like
right.
we try, what are we trying to delist like autonomously is those like described it wrong, or it's like saying something that's like inappropriate like for the whole public to know or to like to read, because like it's false information or it's accused the wrong people with wrong reason. Like those are the same we're trying to delist. But for the factual description, we try to keep them.
Right. Have you came across any cases that is a link or a document have been delisted and then be relisted again in the search engine? Is there any case like that?
Not really.
Okay.
Most of the thing is about like court argue that whether this should be delisted,
right.
or like.
Right. I mean, it's amazing that it's not only you have to manually evaluate those how many million, and some of them you need to go to court.
Yeah.
That's actually a huge amount of work.
That's why we say like for those menu check team, they may have this kind of pressure. They realize, oh, if we say no to them, they're probably gonna sue us in the court, and we're gonna like get into more trouble. And okay, let's just like get them a yes and then just pass, and nothing gonna happen.
Right.
But that's why I say sometimes it's not fair, and it's gonna like cause more problematic maybe later.
Yeah, I feel if we can do it autonomously, number one, that it's a program. So if something is wrong, people will look at the program, right? Something will look at the program or look at the machine learning. And the other thing is that if we say that the delisting is not permanent, meaning that there is a rebuttal in the future that it could go either one way or the other, then it will be a lot easier that we can tune. We can actually be able to decide when we have more information, and I think that will be interesting for us to consider that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the main issue that I feel I'm really excited about what you're doing. So here is some detail about I want to ask you. So you mentioned that something is a factual. So you want to remove if it's wrong is a factual error. How about information that's actually correct? That's true, but it was obtained illegally. I mean, for example, if I have a document, if I have a document for Panama Paper or WikiLeaks, so those kind of information that's actually is somewhere on the internet, but it was leaked out through a illegal process. According to your understanding about right to be forgotten, may I actually request that document to be removed, unsearchable by Google? I mean, one of the example is the Panama Paper, which is a lot of celebrity, their off-shelf account in Virgin Island or whatever those shelf company got exposed, and obviously that's not public information, but it's true. Can those information be removed, be forgotten?
Yes, I think our system, because I think we should remove them, because our system, like from the utilitarianism, it seems like this it's a fact, but those information could like bring like those risk or harmness for those people which like being leaked out. And it's also a privacy issue, which is also reconnected to human right. Like those other things should be protected, but being gained illegally, even though it's a fact, but it should not be known publicly, still need to be removed from the internet though.
Yeah, I want to add a point. So I think in our paper, we also mentioned that our system will also process any request from the authority, such as the court and stuff. So basically, in this situation, like the Panama paper, the court will step in, right? So the court can also like process a request to our system and to say that this information should not be appeared in the public, in the search engine, and we can definitely delete those, like
Yes.
process those requests.
Okay, so you might or might not familiar with the case, but for the Pentagon paper, I show a little bit of the movie The Post. It was illegally obtained from the Department of Defense of the United States. The paper was illegally obtained to look at how US, the internal intention, whatever, to actually dealing with the Vietnam situation. And this was in the, I think, early 70. It was a little bit before the Watergate scandal. So Richard Nixon was the president. So the Supreme Court of the United States vote 6-3, which is 6-3, approve for Washington Post and New York Times. It's actually legal for them to publish this information. So the source of the information is obtained illegally, but the publisher, the journalists, they have the freedom. They have to have the protection to protect that and to actually publish the detail. It was very interesting. It's a controversial, it's 6-3, but 6-3 is not 5-4. The Supreme Court ruled out saying that I think the way he said it is the journalism of the United States is to monitor the government, or to actually, I forgot exactly the word, but not the governed. So basically saying that the governed has the right to know of these things, even though the legal is actually is illegal to obtain those documents. It's basically classified material. It's an interesting case at that time. But so when I look at this, if Pentagon paper, you can search for Pentagon paper, or I think it's The Most Dangerous Man in United States. That was the title. Or you can watch the movie The Post. If that's the case, that the information that can be published is a huge interest, is legally obtained, and you can even today you still can search for that. So that's why I'm wondering whether the information that's leaked out. I mean, are you aware of any cases in the Google 1.5 million? Are there anything against, say, WikiLeaks? For example, WikiLeaks or any kind of this kind of source leaking illegally?
Didn't find like the specific one, but I think from the Pentagon paper thing you mentioned, like either from the movie or the court, I think the issue is like you need a more authoritative institution to make an argument. Like you need a lot of time for a group of people to set up together to hear about those results and discuss all kinds of situation this like bring to. And I think that's also part of our system set before like for those kind of convolutional cases, we're gonna use like human intervention in them to like to maybe pull them out and find those features. And at that kind of case, our system is not trying to like decide whether to delist automatically, but like provide a bunch of useful information for like those groups to decide whether this case should be delisted or not. Like our system not become a final execution tool, but like a assistant for them to discuss about.
Yeah, I'll be really interested to see if how will the European Commission view such issue when people try to do that, or California for the same matter. I think I asked all the questions, but the last question is a bit technical, so I will ask anyway because I know you guys are really good in this. So I think you used the example to show the XAI, and you used the you mentioned the technology SHAP to use for explainable AI, and to basically SHAP basically provide what feature is actually contribute to the decision about this. So I look at the figure you use. The figure you use is obviously about packet classification. Is looking at the network packet, like the I think is one is a net destination port, one is the number of bytes in that packet. So I'm actually very familiar with the classification or anomaly detection based on the feature. Usually in the internet packet, the number of feature are actually very low. I'm thinking there is probably 40 to 60 feature at most when you try to classify the packet. So essentially your feature kind of low dimension compared to when you look at the whole link, the whole content, the kind of feature you can have could be enormous compared to that. So my question for you is that, are you familiar with SHAP, which I'm not familiar with SHAP? Can they handle high dimensional? Means that you have many more feature than the example we have.
I'm actually not sure, but I would like to just go back to our model. So right here, I'm actually thinking because I deeply understand like they probably will have a lot of feature like from like first layer. So I'm thinking use like embedding to actually do the like dimension reduction. So we can probably just feed like for each feature, like the topic or the seriousness, we it probably like encoded and like contain like probably like more than 100,000 options, and we want to like narrow it down and just put into like couple nodes after embedding. Like so, like typically a way like to handle like the categorical data is kind of like using one hot or like some way just like have one node for each category. But we know like we have so many features and it would be super hard. So we're thinking if we can just do the dimension reduction on like on those features. So like when we feed into the our model, actually for each feature or like each like category, it only contains a couple nodes. So we probably it's hard to like get the specific understanding about like each feature, each node, but we should have like a broad understanding like whether this category of the data is kind of make huge impacts on the decision-making processes. So that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I guess to answer my own question, I think you have to, I'm not saying for this quarter, but in the future, you probably have to gather the data set and really doing some dimensionality analysis to really understand what is the effective topology of a deep neural network to be able to handle that problem well. You might need similar technology as Chef suggests, or you might need something which is more complicated. And it might be Chef, it might be something else. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think I asked all the questions I would like to ask. Do you have any question for me before I turn off the video recording?
All three.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much for this quarter. And this is a very interesting work that I think this area, I like this area is not only ethic related, but it's also very controversial. I think we still have a lot of room to grow, to develop. Hopefully, the people behind GDPR and all this privacy folks, they will be able to develop technology as you suggested, and then be able to do that more effectively. And it's a balance between the right to know and the right to be forgotten for our society. Okay, thank you very much, and I will wish all of you a good summer. And some of you are graduating this quarter, right?
Yeah.
Any of you? Okay, congratulations. Okay, I'm going to turn off the recording now. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Professor,
Thank
and
you.
I have a off